Just a quick reminder, I don't want to jump over the top of David on the availability of data and information, but all the data presented today will be available, is already available on the Cape Cod Focus website. That's capecodfocus.org. All the presentations are already posted on there. It's now my great pleasure and honor to introduce the next panel we have. We're going from a really data-rich portion of the content of today's program into some more practical, on-the-ground, experiential examples from some of the elected officials and leaders in our region, as well as Franklin County. We're lucky enough to have some guests, or a guest from Franklin County today to talk about some of the efforts they've made there. The Franklin Regional Council of Governments is a regional organization offering a variety of programming, products, and services, both on the municipal and regional level, to its member towns. They serve the 26 towns of Franklin County, the most rural county in Massachusetts, and located in the upper Connecticut River Valley in the western part of the state. They are actively involved in regional economic development and environmental protection efforts, statewide policy development, and provide direct services to member towns. Linda Dunleavy, who joins us today, is their administrator, and she will discuss some of her experiences with the regionalization efforts in Franklin County. Joining her from Cape Cod are Sheila Vanderhoek, the town manager of Eastham, Robin Wilkins, chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Harwich, Sharon Lynn, the town manager of Provincetown, and Ira Wood, the selectman of Wellfleet. I'd like to welcome all these people to the stage.
Morning. I have to start with a quick story about the Mass Inc. survey. My mother was talking to a group of people who basically summarized the conversation by saying all people who work in government are both corrupt and inept. And my mother responded that she had a daughter that worked in government, and they thought that I was okay because I wasn't elected. I do have to confess to you that I am an elected school committee member of my municipality, so probably some portion of me is inept and corrupt, and you may want to take what I say with a grain of salt as a result. So, I've been asked to talk about what we do at the Franklin Regional Council of Governments and to focus my presentation on the municipal service programs that we offer. Tell you about how they work, why they work, and why we have picked what we do. Let me start by giving you something that Gary already said, which is we are the most rural county in Massachusetts, 72,000 people across 725 square miles in 26 towns. Our largest municipality is Greenfield. That's our only mayoral form of government. We have 18,000 people in Greenfield. Our smallest town is Monroe with 93 people. We like to joke that when we had our staff Christmas party in Monroe, we doubled the population of the town. In terms of professional capacity, only 2 of our towns have planners. Only, what do we have? 3 towns with full-time building inspectors and 3 towns with health agents. A little bit about us. We are the former county government, the Franklin County Commission. When Governor Weld was intent on abolishing county government, we voluntarily abolished ourselves and were seamlessly recreated as the Council of Governments. This changed our financial structure. We are no longer an involuntary cherry sheet assessment. We are a voluntary membership organization. Our towns each year choose to pay the membership or not. We also restructured our municipal service programs. They now basically function as private, separate businesses within our organization. They are expected to bring in the revenue that they need to cover their costs. They are voluntary, opt-in. And then we have several grant programs, grant-led programs. We're the regional planning agency for the state. We have a teen advocacy program, an emergency preparedness program, and we're currently the fiduciary for Western Mass Homeland Security Funds. So, our municipal service programs are accounting, cooperative inspection, cooperative purchasing, regional health inspection, regional public health nurse, and engineering and IT. So why these and why are they successful? Well, first, town need, and thus town request. This is an important lesson that we've learned. Over the years, we've started a couple of programs that we thought were a good idea, but the towns didn't, and we had to close those programs. So town need is very important. In our towns have difficulty attracting and retaining qualified part-time staff. Another reason our programs are successful is that municipal sharing programs, it reduces the cost of providing the service for the town, or improves the quality, and most likely both. Again, our programs are voluntary, opt-in. Only the towns that want the services and need the services pay for the services. In some cases, participation in our program meets federal or state mandates for our municipalities. And for us, for the COG, by combining services together, we can attract full-time staffing, so we are able to provide good salaries, benefited positions, and can attract qualified people. Let me tell you something about each of our programs. The Town Accounting Program provides professional municipal accounting services to 9 towns. The fee is based on average number of service hours per week. In general, our towns receive about 8 hours of service. We were able, when the COG bought new accounting software, we negotiated with the vendor that any town that participated in our accounting program could access our software. Any town with a population of under 2,000 could access our software with a software license agreement. This has been a huge benefit to the program and to our towns, because the towns then don't have to buy accounting software. That can be a $20,000 to $30,000 expense. Instead, the towns pay a $1,000 annual maintenance and upgrade fee, and the cost to convert from their old software to the new software. In Franklin County, we have many of our towns were using a software that is the person who ran it, truly an individual who ran it, is retiring, so this has pushed a lot of people to our program. I will say that what we have done is we will only serve towns if they use our software or purchase the software that we use. That allows us to have the same chart of accounts, the same policies and procedures, and then allows us to move our staff between towns if there's sickness or vacation, but also makes our work much more efficient. You're going to ask me if our towns were resistant to that. For the most part, no, because the quality of service has dramatically improved with the program. The cooperative look at me, sorry. There. The Cooperative Inspection Program provides building, plumbing, and wiring and gas inspection to 15 towns. The fee is based on a 3-year permit history. That is intended to even out highs and lows to make it more affordable and predictable for our towns, but also for our program. Towns pay the assessment. They put the money aside up front in their annual budget. They retain the fees. A 5-year look at the cost of the program is the program basically is no cost. Over a 5-year average, most towns pay nothing. We also have a permit tracking software within the program that is particularly good for us, for our contractors, for our towns, and that would be a service that our smaller towns wouldn't be able to do. I will say that because our assessment is based on permit activity, we really don't capture the cost of zoning enforcement. I would think that if we move to taking over the inspection services of our larger towns with more complex zoning, we have to reconsider that. Cooperative purchasing, I won't spend a lot of time with because I know you have a great cooperative purchasing program through the Cape Cod Commission. Our cooperative purchasing program offers highway products and services, fuel, tough here to do the fuel bid, and dog tags and licenses. The Regional Health Inspection Program provides code enforcement to 8 towns. It's service to the boards of health in towns. The way this program works, I won't read it. Can you all read that? It's just such a huge screen that I'll assume you can read it. The way this program works is that our towns choose from a menu of options. If our towns have a Board of Health member that has expertise in Title V or perk tests, they don't use that service from us, they don't pay for that service from us. This program, the fee is based on historical activity, or if it's a new town, it is based on an estimate of the number of food establishments or whatever kind of work we're doing for them. The regional public health nurse serves 3 towns. Fee is based on an annual agreed upon scope of work. For our towns that can use this service, this has been a very good thing because town nurses in at least our region are becoming a thing of the past. The towns that are committed to offering senior services, flu clinics, blood pressure clinics, etc., have used this service. The other thing that this program has done is helped with infectious disease reporting, which is much higher requirements since 9/11. Engineering and IT. We, for a long time, had a full-time county engineer. When we transitioned to the COG, we tried to keep a full-time engineer. We were not able to sustain that because engineering services, our service needs of our towns were so inconsistent, both based on need of project but also available funds in our municipalities, that we were paying for a full-time engineer but not getting the revenues back from our towns to support a full-time engineer. What we did instead for both engineering and IT was went out with an RFP for engineering and IT services. We have consultants now serving our member towns through an agreement with the COG. There's no financial commitment for the COG, there's no financial commitment on the part of the towns. We have negotiated a reduced price for the services. What's in it for the IT and the engineering professionals is the hope that they will get the majority of the work in Franklin County. Okay. Let me tell you something about some of our special projects. The emergency communication system in Franklin County was old and barely functioning. With the Homeland Security funds coming to Western Mass, both to our region and 2 years of, remember when there were allocations specifically to towns, that has stopped, but there was 2 years of Homeland Security funding to towns. We pooled all of our funds and bought a new emergency communication system. I realized this morning that one reason this may have been a relatively easy thing for us to do is we have only one dispatch center. The Franklin County Dispatch Center was already serving all emergency response needs. But this program has been a great program. The COG has agreed to own, operate, and maintain the system. All users pay an assessment to us to keep that system up and going. The other thing we've done is we have formed a regional emergency planning committee. There is a federal mandate that every municipality in the country is to have a hazardous materials response plan. None of our towns did. The legislation also allows for a region to create one emergency response plan that would meet the mandate for each municipality. So all 26 towns of Franklin County asked us to form the emergency planning committee. We did so. We now have full certification for our hazardous material response plan. The REPC has also expanded. We do first responder trainings and workshops and tabletop exercises. And we also began a citizen emergency response team in Medical Reserve Corps, which are volunteers that help out in times of emergency, and they have Greenfield flood and Irving fire and several other events. A project that we're working on now is the Energy Savings Performance Contracting. You may have heard of this. This is when a municipality hires an energy services company to come in and do energy audits of municipal buildings. Identified capital improvements are then paid for through the cost savings to your energy bills. We have issued the first regional RFP. How many towns? 16 towns and 3 school districts are involved in this regional RFP. The role of the COG was to issue the RFP, to select and contract with the ESCO, the Energy Services Company, and we have also worked to create 3 draft legal templates that the towns will then use throughout their relationships with the ESCOs. Now the towns will work with the ESCOs individually, and the role of the COG, we step back now. What's next for us? We've been asked to look into shared highway equipment, either helping to forge relationships between towns or perhaps the COG owning the highway equipment and sharing the use. We've been asked to look at starting a municipal assessment program and providing assessors assistance to our towns. With the Franklin County Solid Waste District, we're looking at shared recycling services and shared recycling trucks. We are working with our Franklin County school districts and involved in a large study right now that's analyzing Franklin County schools and the provision of education, and we will be working with our school systems to make sure that we are offering the very best education that we can that also meets the financial conditions of our towns. We've been asked to do a cost-benefit analysis of providing inspection and health services to our larger towns, our towns that already have inspectors and health agents. We've been asked to help with volunteer fire department recruitment, and we are in preliminary conversations with Greenfield Community College to look at whether we can make some sort of joint program or certification or internship to help get people into the municipal workforce. We see that as a problem for our towns. We see it as a problem for the COG, that it's hard for us to expand our services because we just don't have a labor pool of people with experience in municipal government functions. And that's all I have. There's our website, which someone's been on because Gary read from our website. But that's all I have. Now where's the job?
What we wanted to do at this point was get some local response from the officials that we have here from the Cape, some discussion of the challenges that they're facing in their own towns, and some of their reaction to both what has been implemented in Franklin County and some of the things that Linda floated as ideas that they're looking at. We'll start right here with Sheila, and we'll go down the line, and then we'll leave some time for Q&A with the audience as well. So Sheila Vanderbilt.
Good morning. Certainly pleased to be here to be able to share with you some of the things that we are doing on the Lower Outer Cape. The towns of Eastham, Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown have all joined together to try to see if we can look for some ways in which we might share either equipment, supplies, staffing, planning issues, do some strategic planning together to really create not only some cost savings, but also some service improvements. Clearly, an economic summit on the Cape is not complete without government. The Cape Cod governments employ a significant number of people in many towns. It's the first or second largest employer. And therefore, we can have some significant impact on the way in which we do business and then consequently on the cost of doing that business. We've been talking about regionalization or regionalism or regional approaches, regional cooperation. Those are all concepts that we hear, and certainly the topic gets wide play. But it really is a method of sharing not only resources, but it's a philosophy of sharing. We need to be committed to sharing and therefore giving up, in some cases, absolute control, some level of control. The goal being to always remember that your government is really there to serve the citizens. We have talked about whether or not we can achieve some cost savings, and we are looking at reducing costs, but that's not the prime driver for the regionalization, because the prime driver is the delivery of service and improving and enhancing those opportunities for service delivery. Currently on the Cape, we talked about the Franklin County example, but Barnstable County for the Cape serves a lot of those same functions that are in Franklin County, not to the same extent. Most of the towns on the Cape experience significant population changes, and so that when you look at their structure, a town of 6,000, such as Eastham, 5,000 or 6,000, basically will look like an off-Cape town of about 15 or 20,000 people in terms of its structure, because we have such significant increases in population in the summer. And so for that reason, we have a lot of the services that Franklin County had to give to their departments right away. We have those services. Where we can benefit is on the need to ramp up for that summer population and then to ramp back down for the year-round winter population. So Barnstable County has helped us in a lot of ways. Some of the opportunities that they provide for us currently is, for example, the Barnstable County Health Department. The health department, if the health agent of the local community is off on vacation, or if you have a vacancy in that position, the county will step in and do your health work for you. There's no additional charge for that. They're there and they're always willing to come out and help. If you have a very complicated system that you're trying to review from the health side, the Barnstable County will come down and take care of that and give you whatever resources you need. The same with the Cape Cod Commission with planning issues. If the planning issue is very complicated and the local community can't handle it or needs some additional resources, they will do that. The county also, in the health department, also established a hazardous waste collection joint collection days. We currently have hazardous waste collection days. All of the towns have them individually. The county has now created a system where you actually share with another town. So instead of your community having one opportunity to dispose of hazardous waste, there's maybe 2 or 3 opportunities because they can go to another town. We are dealing with hazardous or emergency planning issues. We have a regional emergency planning committee. We deal with writing grants and doing the training, tabletop exercises, those kinds of things relative to emergency planning, and we've been doing those things. The county also has a purchasing department, and the purchasing department has been very, very helpful. We bulk buy and bid things such as gasoline, office supplies. So no matter how small your town is, you can participate in that bulk and take advantage of the reduced cost of those kinds of materials. The bidding is being expanded to include such things as equipment and supplies. One of the things that we did talk about in our meeting was hard equipment, capital equipment, front-end loaders, fire engines, ambulances, whether or not those equipment pieces can be standardized so that when the bid goes out, the bidder is looking at maybe 5 or 10 pieces of equipment and therefore can give you a better price. Another thing that we've been talking a little bit about is whether or not we can also share some capital facilities, whether those capital facilities would be locating fire stations so that they're more conveniently located for serving the population as opposed to recognizing municipal boundaries. Whether we look at things such as transfer stations. Every town has a transfer station. The service is really necessary 7 days a week, but many towns can't afford that. Whether or not we could share transfer station access so that the public can have 7-day access to transfer stations without any individual town having to pick up the cost of that. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking at for new or different kinds of approaches to add to the regional activities that we're already involved in. And I think with the initiative from, and being joined by Wellfleet, Truro, and Provincetown, what we're able to do is we're able to recognize the opportunity that exists when the 4 Lower Cape towns join together and start to think about themselves as a consistent whole and be able to go out into the marketplace, whether it's for purchasing equipment and supplies or organizing a service such as transfer stations, to be able to look at ourselves as a coordinated whole and maybe take some advantage of that. But I do think that it's important to remember that the regional sharing opportunities and the regional structure way of thinking is really entrenched on the Cape and has been, and that the strong Barnstable County mechanism allows us to kind of utilize that and actually build on that. So we're really looking forward to being able to make a little bit more headway on this and to pick up some new things. We definitely will hope to ultimately save some money, but definitely the goal is always to improve the service delivery and to certainly not spend any additional money. We think that the money savings may not be the first part, but certainly on capital equipment and supplies and operational issues, we believe that there are some money savings to be made. I'm going to turn it over to Ira. Ira Wood is the selectman in Wellfleet, and he is working with me on the committee along with members from Truro and Provincetown.
Certainly Sheila has covered most of the technical things. She's and specific services. Mike. Hello? Hello? Certainly. Apparently not. I have it. Certainly Sheila has covered and thank you very much, and I appreciate it. Certainly, I feel set up here. Certainly Sheila has covered most of the specifics, and she's a terrific town administrator, as everybody on the Outer Cape knows. So I thought that I would talk a little bit about the political issues involved. In order to even talk about shared services on the Cape, and I have to assume that this is the same in any county, Barnstable or Franklin, is that you need political officials who have chutzpah. You need people who are not afraid to change things and to ask people to do things a little differently. It was not a surprise to me that when I saw the previous speaker talking about job generation and job loss, that government was one of the areas in which jobs had gone up, whereas in the private sector, jobs had gone down. Now, if, coming from the perspective of a selectman in a small town, this is not bad if you feel that you're getting total bang for the buck from all your employees. But when I hear from my FinCom that Wellfleet, a very, very small town, has a $30 million unfunded liability going into the future, which we have to cope with on a year-to-year basis as people retire and as we pay retirement services, it's very, very clear that it's in all of our interests to attempt to reduce the size of the town government if we can do it by sharing and keeping services at a high level. From my point of view, I would really like to see the county and the state help us with cost-benefit analyses and incentives. I think that the county in Barnstable is very, very strong in the health services area, and this is something that we could certainly share with other towns. We're looking at sharing communications, and I know that as we go down the road and do this, people are going to say, well, we in Wellfleet are used to calling up our police department and finding out who won the election and what time the fireworks started. And these are the kinds of things that people really expect. And these are the kinds of questions that low-level political officials like myself are expected to answer. And these are the things that people want to know. And we've been talking about, well, how do you provide? Do you really need someone who's sitting there at $30,000, $35,000 an hour, 24 hours a day to answer these questions? Or could you perhaps get somebody from the Chamber of Commerce to sit at the phone and answer the questions about the fireworks, etc.? So in many ways, it's a large issue, looking at millions of dollars down the road, and in many ways, these are extremely local issues that need to be solved in a town-to-town basis. And I think that you've tapped out my expertise on this issue at this point, and I'm going to let the experts answer.
We also have Robin Wilkins, who's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Harwich. While he's not working with our four-town group on regional issues, the town of Harwich has been looking at their school system and trying to decide how they're going to go forward with a relatively small school system. And so he's going to talk a little bit about that and some of the work at the state level.
There have been a couple of meetings taking place today, one in this room and one in the lobby. And when I went out in the lobby, I learned that a meeting that I attended yesterday, somebody wasn't informed. Now this was just two selectmen and two town administrators getting together to have a conversation about a further conversation. So no decisions were made, no action was taken. That was the sole reason of meeting. Well, I heard it out in the lobby about 15 minutes ago. We didn't know anything about that. What the heck's going on? Therein lies the rub, my friends. If we can't talk to our neighbors, if we can't move the agenda, we're not going to regionalize anything. I have been arguing for some time for incentives that would stimulate regionalization. As recently as Monday, as a member of the Local Government Advisory Commission, I sit on that board with Sheila. All of a sudden, the Lieutenant Governor says, I have an announcement to make. All right, Lieutenant Governor Murray, appreciate that. I'd like to announce that we're going to award $2 million to the regional planning agencies to look at the consolidation of services. That was part of Governor Patrick's reform and restructuring focus when he addressed the state's fiscal crisis. So on Wednesday, our town administrator got an email from Bob Nunes, who's head of municipal and local services, that this, in fact, had taken place. So, as recently as this morning, I talked to Paulson's Whiskey, and he said yes. And I said, well, how much is Cape Cod going to get? Well, he said $155,000 out of $2 million. I went, wow, that's huge bucks to do what we need to do on Cape in terms of structuring a planning process for transforming some of our local municipal services into regional services. So that's a problem. Like Paul said, when he knew that we'd been having conversations with Chatham regarding the future of the Chatham School District and the Harwich School District. We've also been having conversations with Brewster regarding fire service. And these meetings, you need to know, are very, very sensitive. These are small communities. These communities employ people. These people live in the community. They immediately feel the threat that you're going to kick me out of my job, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to go on unemployment, and I'm going to be done. So there is the whole trust factor that is inherent in carrying on conversations with your neighbor. Now let's talk about schools for a second. Because at one point I worked for the Office of Educational Quality and Accountability. I was part of the audit that did Nauset High School. You need to know in this room that Nauset High School is one of the higher achieving school districts in the state of Massachusetts. On all levels, whether it's curriculum or performance evaluation or how they manage their budgets, they're superior. And I was really impressed when I read yesterday about the consolidation of our school's editorial in the Cape Cod Times. Mike Padone is trying to bring together and carry on the conversation because he sees, especially for the Nauset Regional School District, because the governor has already alluded to this, that it's one thing to regionalize your high school and middle school, but what the state is going to be looking for in the future is a full regionalization. And there are reasons for that. Efficiency of transportation, efficiencies regarding curriculum, food service, all the other supplementary services that go into running a school district. School regionalization in Massachusetts has been looked at alone in Harwich for the last 35 years. We've had on again, off again, on again, off again. Gone to town meeting. Yes, we want it. No, we don't. What I'm trying to point up to the fact, now is the hour. Now is the time. If we don't capitalize now on regional services, whether it's in wastewater management, which we've had a conversation with Chatham on that, whether it's in fire service, we've had a conversation with Chatham and Brewster on that. Whatever the area, if we miss it now, we will have missed the opportunity. Because as one of the previous speakers said, once we begin to come out of this economic downturn, people will no longer see the need to pool resources, to realize efficiencies and economies of scale. So now is the time. And the residents of all our communities are key in having the elected officials succeed in facilitating regional services. If we leave the taxpayer out of the conversation, we will fall into a pothole every single time we try to pursue our agenda. So I ask all of you, business, industry, labor, when your local Board of Selectmen, whether they're working as the Cape Cod Selectmen's and Councilors Association, where we monthly address regional issues across the Cape, whether it's the Massachusetts Municipal Association, that now has finally taken ownership and recognizes the need to support regional activities, so that they're stepping up to the plate. Please engage your communities. Let them know. Communicate. Be open. Invite them in, because this is our future. Thank you.
In every crisis, there's an opportunity, and I think that framed it in perfect terms. And this idea of having a conversation, opening the lines for a conversation, I think it is what Cape Cod Focus is about. That's what this website is about. It's about supporting the efforts that these people are putting forth in their community. Obviously, these are not easy challenges that they're facing. It's important for us to support them. What we want to do right now is keep this conversation going. If we can get some mics going around, get some feedback from these people with your ideas, your thoughts on what's been shared. The final panel of the day, again, is going to be a conversation, and that's what we want. We want some give and take and good exchange. So if you have a question, a comment, anything, please, let's try and keep the energy going on this. Just raise your hand. They're going around with the mics.
Good morning, Mike Whalen, Police Chief of the Town of Dennis. I thought it would be somewhat disappointing, at least to me, if I didn't leave here today mentioning some of the things that are being done on a county basis, and I know the town administrator from Eastham alluded to some of them. But speaking from the public safety standpoint, let me just say that the 15 chiefs, and I won't speak for them, I'll just speak for myself, but 15 of us do meet on a regular basis every month. And we do have a law enforcement council that deals with a number of regional services. So this is kind of public safety slant. But we do have, from a communication standpoint, I was looking at the Franklin County government slide, we do, 10 of the 15 towns do take our communication infrastructure from the state. We piggyback on the state. And we get our county maintenance and services for that radio system through the county government. We also do all of our crime scene investigations that are done by the county. So we've regionalized those services as well. Bill Mason's here, the chief of Harwich, so I won't speak for him, but he oversees the accident reconstruction program, which again is a region-wide police technical accident reconstruction. They do about 30 calls a year, and they're made up of departments throughout the Cape. And our tactical team, which I oversee with the chief from Barnstable, has 22 members from 8 different departments, and we do approximately 20 calls a year on Serene Cape Cod. Also, we do have the regional BC REPSI group, which I know, again, the town administrator from Eastham talked about. But our big program this year has been regional shelters, and we're looking at 6 regional shelters on the Cape, 2 down the Cape, 2 middle and 2 lower. And right now we're waiting for Homeland Security grant money to come out so we can get an idea. But that is one of the state's objectives this year, is to do regional sheltering, and we're looking to have a program that will shelter 3,000 residents. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it's better than what we have now, where we have 30 different local shelters, and we just don't have the resources to keep that going. So I'd just like people to know that there are regional agreements going on, there are regional programs going on in public safety, and if there's anything this group could do for us, and something chiefs have been trying to do for the last few years, is just something as simple as getting the State House to pass legislation that allows us to have police authority on a regional basis instead of a local basis, because we are involved in mutual aid on a daily basis, where officers from one town go to another town to help out when there's a problem. So that might be something that this group could help us with.
Thank you. Comments, questions, feedback, anything for the panel?
Hello, Peter Meyer. I have just a quick question for Linda. Linda, I'm just curious about the impetus of the work you've done in Franklin. If the governor hadn't abolished county government or had an agenda to do that, do you think that you'd be in the same place today, and maybe if not completely regionalized to the extent that you are, but perhaps something less? But something else have been the impetus?
This one used to work for me.
I've been asked that question a lot, and most recently by the Lieutenant Governor. I don't completely know the answer, obviously, because we did transition. I will say that we are now a voluntary membership organization, and it is certainly our purpose, our personal purpose, is to keep all of our towns satisfied, because we need their membership for us to survive. So we have become a much more accountable organization than we were as a county. The downside for us is that it is a voluntary opt-in. We have to sell ourselves every year. We take some amount of time away from the work we're providing to show our towns every year that we've done what we said we were going to do. But I think because we are more accountable in this format, as a result, we have expanded more and provide more services and listen to our towns more and work more closely with our towns.
Okay, Linda, one question also.
Hi, Tim.
Microphone, please. Linda, could you speak to the potential impact of the governor's broadband bill to bring broadband to Western Massachusetts, and what potential effect that might have by digitally connecting all of these towns? What further opportunities there might be for your region?
Why, Dan, I'd be happy to. One of the things that the Franklin Regional Council of Governments does is we are the co-chair and facilitator of Pioneer Valley Connect. This is an effort to bring broadband to all parts of the Pioneer Valley. We work cooperatively with Berkshire Connect. For those of you that don't know, before a recent Verizon investment, there were 33 communities in Massachusetts that had no access to broadband, 32 of which were located in Western Massachusetts, 13 of which are located in Franklin County. So, for us and for our towns, this has been an incredible hardship, both for municipal government functioning, trying to file reports with DOR, with dial-up. Our towns will press send at 7 p.m., we'll come back into the office at 9 a.m., and it's not done sending. So that's been a huge problem for us, but also in terms of economic development, education, public safety, broadband is so critical. I think that when we succeed, when we have access for all students, for all residents, for all households to have broadband, it will expand our opportunity. I think it will make a big difference in our Franklin County Public School project. One of the problems we have is that our students don't all have equal access to broadband. It will enable our agency to do more with things like our accounting program, because our accounting program uses a 24/7 remote access system, and that's hard to do for our towns that don't have broadband. We've talked about expanding our inspection program permit tracking so that it is online permit application. We're hesitant to do that when so many of our contractors and builders don't have access to broadband. It would just be an annoyance to try to do that with dial-up. So I think there's a lot more opportunity, and we look forward to succeeding with that effort.
Well, I'm John Wheeler from the town of Harwich and also a member of the board of the Harwich Chamber. And Robin, you and I have had lots of conversations about this notion of regionalization and the benefits that can be derived by all, okay, from regionalization. I also agree with all of the speakers relative to emphasizing or acknowledging people's concerns about the potential loss of jobs, potential loss of services, etc. But I think there's another dimension to this that we also have to acknowledge as a region, and that is that one of the characteristics of New Englanders is our provincial thought process. We don't do things with those people. We don't talk with those people. We don't engage with people who live in other towns other than our own. We have to acknowledge that sensitivity as we engage them in this conversation. Be aware and acknowledge those sensitivities and find strategies to work with them, engage them in the process of trying to overcome those biases. Because without our ability to be able to overcome those biases, we will not be successful in our efforts to try and regionalize and generate the benefits therefrom. Thank you.
I'd like to make a comment relative to those remarks. I'm not from New England. I'm from Chicago, and the Midwest has a history of more regional, more broad, open kinds of sharing arrangements. I think that when you sell yourself short when you say as New Englanders you don't want to share, because Barnstable County and what you've done there and the regional structures and sharing opportunities you have in place now far exceed most any place else in the state. I mean, Franklin County, as an example, I think if we were to list case by case, you'd find more things that you currently do at Barnstable County level with your towns in terms of sharing than Franklin does, and it's still growing. So I really think that, yes, New England towns and the New England dynamic is certainly to be independent and to go it alone and be self-sufficient. But I do think that while someone was sleeping, a little bit of regionalism creeped in, and people are actually sharing things, and it's working out fairly well.
Hello, I'm Jim Kinsella with Cape Cod Today, and a question for the panel, again, looking at what regionalization means in terms of cutting jobs, cutting positions, cutting people's livelihoods. And for those organizations and entities that are looking at this and would like to move in that direction, what do you say to those people whose jobs you're cutting and positions you're cutting? What do you say to them? You say you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. What, if anything, can you do for those people?
From a town administrator's point of view, I would speak first looking at my organization. As we talked about the things that would be regionalized, as I said in my opening remarks, the first goal is not necessarily to cut positions, it's to improve efficiency. So where a town currently does something, but could do it better, could serve their citizens better, that might be an opportunity. Certainly when we talk about capital equipment and when we talk about the location of capital facilities and when we talk about the challenges that are on the horizon for the Cape, someone mentioned earlier the wastewater. Wastewater is a huge, very, very expensive endeavor that many towns on the Cape are going to have to take on. To go that alone is definitely going to be prohibitive for many towns. You need to start to share. So some of the sharing and regional things are going to be to do the things that we need to do, some that we haven't tackled yet. Some of the regionalization issues are going to be to improve our physical plant and the availability of services for our citizens.
Well, I think that we in Wellfleet are a long way away from cutting positions. I think that we are in a position of saying no more hires. And I think that we're in a position of looking at how to combine once there's attrition of employees who are leaving. So we're not cutting right now. We're not focused on that. We're focused on getting the most that we can for our dollar, and I believe that that will come partially through sharing services with other towns.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question.
Add one perhaps harsh thing. The services that we've provided have also not resulted in layoffs in the municipalities, primarily because we were helping our towns fill empty positions that they couldn't fill. That being said, I think that our towns have come to the realization that municipal government has to act like a business at this point, and that when you act like a business, you have to make some tough decisions sometimes. So, sorry if that sounds harsh.
Robert.
I did have a follow-up question on that, and thank you for addressing that point on the last one. And speaking here specifically of certain places on the Cape, such for example, Chatham and Harwich. Well, if Chatham and Harwich merge, there's going to be one superintendent. It's not going to be two. Even within the town of Barnstable, where you have several different fire districts, should that day ever come when some of those districts get together, obviously some of those positions would be lost. And I wonder if anyone on the panel would care to address that. If you feel you've said your piece, that's fine, thank you.
Earlier on, there was one of the speakers made mention of improving delivery. And I spent almost 30 years working for different educational service agencies in New York State. And the purpose of providing cooperative services and shared services and itinerant teacher services is to reach the needs of all students, to ensure that you're able to deliver a program that enables each student to reach their potential. If you went through all the school districts on Cape Cod, I'm sure you would, and talk to each superintendent, I'm sure you would have a conversation where they indicated to you there were instructional programs they believed would be appropriate to various grade levels in their system, but because of, let's say, low enrollments in certain areas, a smaller population demanding that, they were unable to provide that. If we are going to deliver a world-class education on Cape Cod, and if we are going to reduce rural isolationism, and that's what many students on Cape Cod are experiencing, because we want them to be competitive in what we now know is a global economy, then we must find ways to deliver those instructional programs which are cost-effective and meet the needs of all students. Now, in answer to your question, will a superintendent could one superintendent serve Harwich and Chatham? My friend, oh, that sounds like somebody one superintendent could serve Barnstable County. So if you want a bold approach, and I don't know how bold this group is, you could set a goal of 10 years from now, putting into place the Barnstable County school system. And you could put in a group together tomorrow, similar to the wastewater collaborative, which would enable you to put the planning structure in place to make sure that happened in 10 years. And then when you were able to go and encourage new business to come to Harwich, or to come to Chatham, or come to Cape Cod, you would be able to say, we have a county school system, and we teach 23 languages in our county school system. So if you want to prepare people for a world-class culture, those are the kinds of programs you're going to have to put in place, because let me tell you, they're doing that in Weston, they're doing it in Wellesley, they're doing it in Fairfax, Virginia, they're doing it in Montgomery County, because they know how they're going to have to meet the needs of their future population.
Robin, thank you very much for your comments and on education specifically, starting with the Howard area. But I'd like to ask a question, two questions. We hear about the governor's comments on education, his vision for education. We don't know what the timing is. But I have two areas that I'd like to have you comment on. And I call them sticks and carrots. We all know this is a complicated project. Do you see, or do you in your mind vision the sticks and carrots for encouraging regionalization, and what are they? And do you see the governor coming up with incentives for regionalization, and what are they? Thank you.
You're talking about schools, right? Okay. In my opinion, it's time for Cape Cod to lead the state. The way things happen, and what I've observed in the last few years about going to Boston and sitting in on meetings with the lieutenant governor, is that the localities need to be proactive. We need to deliver a message to the state. So if there is a message that we want to deliver regarding regionalism, he needs to hear it. I've been delivering the message for more than a year regarding incentives. Now, $150,000 isn't that much. But also, as part of the school building assistance program, now they have $25,000 grants, and I think Nauset is applying for one, and I think Chatham and Harwich are going to apply for a grant, because they're really efficiency studies. And unless you take localities through that efficiency process and engage them in the planning, they will never buy into the concept of regionalism. It takes tremendous local participation in order for it to happen. And I do believe very strongly that Massachusetts is looking to Maine right now. Maine is cutting their school districts in half. The governor didn't expect this he saw an economic downturn coming, but it wasn't this severe. But I have to believe that as he goes forward, we're going to hear more about the consolidation of services and regional delivery of services than we've heard in the past.
Can I add one thing? I think the governor does want to offer incentives, but we all need to remember that the governor just cut $1.4 billion from the state budget, and there's talk of more cuts in January. I think that we need to change what we think is a carrot. And I think that we are going to soon be getting to a point where simple survival should be considered a carrot. I'm sorry, I sound so grim, but that's really where we are, I think.
Just something further on the issue of the carrots and what they look like. One of the issues that we have at the state level is that it is complicated to do some of the things we're trying to do. And we have to get a special act. Municipalities have to get a special act from the legislature to do some things. And so we have legislators who are working on trying to remove those cumbersome barriers to innovative thinking and regionalization and sharing. And so that would be, in itself, that would be a carrot to encourage it if it were less complicated.
Hello, I'm Lynn Grunman. I'm the chairman of the Board of Selectmen in Sandwich, so I'm an Upper Cape person. And one of the things that first occurred to me in my capacity as a selectman, I worked on the senior management board at the Mass Military Reservation, which has been in place over 20 years and directly and totally responsible for the cleanup there. And it seemed to me as an ongoing example of regionalization as well, the 4 towns of Board MMR. So from that experience, I'm with you 100%. Robin, you did a great job at expressing what the challenge is. I thank you for all the comments made and wanted to address the issue of cutting jobs. Sandwich has the lowest proportion of government jobs to any size town on the Cape. We have less jobs, which equates to we're giving less service for the tax dollar, and naturally nobody wants to pay any more taxes. So for us, regionalization is, and I appreciate you pointing this out, is a question of delivering services, and I'm grateful that you've touched on that. It doesn't get touched on much. Mostly regionalization is about saving money. For Sandwich, it is about delivering services. And your last comment is absolutely true. We will have to work hard to hold on to what we have. And for me, I so appreciate the Cape Cod Commission, because part of what we have is because of our environment and what draws people to the Cape. And their balance can never be forgotten between protecting that and development. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cindy Davidson from Cod Chamber of Commerce. From the local chambers point of view, the local chambers are working collaboratively here on Cape Cod. In addition, the Lower Cape chambers, we are regionalized our training for our small businesses, really trying to strengthen them. But I really want to encourage all of the small businesses to partner with their towns. The town governments cannot do it on their own. The small businesses must become informed, must be part of this whole regionalization conversation.
Last question. I do not want anybody to leave this room with the idea that Barnstable County is not accounting for every single thing that we do for the community. We do not need to be reminded that we are a taxpayer-funded service organization, and our responsibility is indeed to provide services to the community. And from time to time, members of the community, towns, have suggested that we do things differently, and we have tried to respond to that. One of the things that comes out of this, and thank you very much, Sheila, you said everything just like we wrote it for you. And by the way, there are other regional organizations that are existing within our community. We have a regional transportation authority, that attempts to provide public transit. That's another area you should start to think about. You notice the figures that were up here. Transportation and utilities were one that seemed to have either stability or a rise. That's a net service cost to the community, and something we have to think about in terms of how do we look at that. Robin will remind me that I owe you some figures on that. But in any case, please know that Barnstable County has always accounted, for the last 6 years at least, and even before that. We go out to all of your communities, we talk about our stewardship of the $5 million that we get approximately for the Cape Cod Commission and for Barnstable County, which represents about $22 a head, as opposed to $42 a head for Franklin's regional government, for the $3 million that they get. And we're prepared to do a lot more. And as people know, I believe that most of the selectmen in this room have received the correspondence that we've sent out asking for thoughts and ideas in order to integrate more things into the things that we're doing. But as Mary McClay immediately said, we're doing a lot, and we are, and we're prepared to do more. We're all in this together. I hope that at the end of all of this, that we say, what are the things that we can do together? There are areas that we're not going to agree on, but there are areas that we do. And I believe that that's the beginning, not only of the conversation, but of how we begin to work together going forward. We need the business community. We need you folks to stand up. And by the way, Gary, I'm glad to see that you remember the Boston College part that you both share about being a person for others and doing that. But what about your organization actually funding or getting behind some candidates that are since your people don't have confidence in the elected officials, it might be useful for you to field some candidates so that that engagement and involvement will change the paradigm as to what the opinion is. So with that, thank you very much for that, and I think this is so important to let the community know that there are these things that are going on, and that there's an attitude and a willingness to do more. So thank you very much.
Closing comments? I want to thank, as a nonprofit organization, by the way, we cannot endorse specific candidates. I appreciate the thought. We do work actively to get people involved in town meeting. We've done initiatives like Bring It Up. I want to thank our panelists here today. It takes a tremendous amount of courage, of course, to come in front of a group like this and share the ideas that they've shared. I also want to thank those of you in the audience, chiefs of police, selectmen, and others, elected officials who stood up and shared your thoughts. Obviously, you could have laid quietly. We appreciate the feedback on that.